Hey there, comic book friends, I'm Travis, and it's time for another edition of No Capes, where I talk about comic books that don't have to do with superheroes. This is for books for the week of September 17th, 2014. A pretty awesome week of books. I think there's only like one book in here that I was not happy with. So, we'll start talking books and see what happens, right? First off, we're going to talk Six Gun. This is Days of the Dead. This is issue number 2. This continues to tell the backstory of the Knights of Abraham and the Sword of Solomon, or is it the Knights of Solomon and the Sword of Abraham? Anyway, one of those two, I'm forgetting right off the top of my head. Of course, I knew what it was until I started talking. Tells their backstory, which, if you're reading the Six Gun, it's really interesting. If you're not reading the Six Gun, I don't know if you could pick this up and you would know, you would have enough information to know what's going on, but if you read any of the trades and stuff, you could read this mini right now, even if you're not up to speed with the latest trade, which of course came out today, or actually picking up the singles. You could still read this and know what's going on, as long as you're far enough into the introduction to know who these two groups are. You get to see all this back history of kind of what's drawn these two groups to where they're going to be at once they actually hit the main title. What these people's motivations are, beyond the obvious of chasing down the six. You know, obviously these people have other drives and passions and interests, you know, beyond that. So that is cool. I think it's cool to get the extra information on these characters, like I said, that drive and motivate them beyond simply, I work for the order of order, or I work for the order of chaos, and this is just what I do. Getting the extra layer in this case has really been cool. Whereas the other miniseries that's come out, that's spun out of the Six Gun, the Son of a Guns, some of those stories about the prior owners of the Six Guns. Some of those were interesting and some of those were not as interesting. So far, the first two issues of this have just been really solid. It's all one solid story. And like I said, an interesting group that obviously is some pretty significant players in the kind of semi-magical realm of this Western. So great to check them out and get that information and whatnot. And of course, this is written by Colin Budd and Brian Hurt. Brian Hurt normally does the artwork, but in this side book, in this one, it's Mike Norton, and Mike Norton nails it. His artwork is distinctly still Mike Norton's, but also, but he changes his style to some degree, so it does reflect what Brian Hurt's art is. So it really works. It isn't jarring. It doesn't radically feel like you're reading a different book visually than the regular Six Gun. So that's great. Partially due to the fact with Bill Crabtree doing colors on the book, and Bill Crabtree's a solid colorist, especially for this book. He's been on it since, like, the first 6 issues were colored by Brian Hurt, the main title. Otherwise, it's all been colored by Crabtree, and I think he does an excellent job. Great book. Deadly Class number 7, 1988 is when we are. This is the start of a new arc. I'm really digging the artwork in this. It's my favorite thing about it. Wes Craig just does a great job. There's some paneling work in here and the storytelling that I really enjoy. I enjoy these panels, where the panels are a little bit smaller, faster, quicker paced here, as we're going through kind of what our main character, Marcus's life and what's going on. And then you got this kind of, instead of most of the bubbles being in and blocking our panels of art, they're along the outside, along this thick border here. And actually, in this case, I really enjoy that. It seems to work in this. It's one of the things I really like about this art, about this comic book, is the panel work, though. The pacing of the art. We get these longer panels and then some really quick panels to give us a pace and make things move at a certain rate. I think are quite excellent. So I'm really enjoying it for that. That's one of the biggest things I like about the book. As far as the story itself in here, I really like the development of Marcus in here. I like him talking about the fact that he feels kind of petrified and frozen since coming back from Las Vegas. He's kind of trapped with this girlfriend who's who's crazy. I mean, she's certifiably depressed and nuts and whatnot, and he's kind of infatuated with this other girl at the school that he really likes, but at the same time, his girlfriend, he's never had anybody who's actually really wanted him, and she keeps showing up, you know, and saying she wants him and physically wants him, not just emotionally wants him. And how do you say no to that when you're a damaged person who just really wants to be loved yourself? How do you say no? How do you turn that away? And I liked all that complex of all that stuff going on. It doesn't feel like the actual main story moved much in this issue, but I feel like the story gives us a reason why it hasn't moved, because Marcus is kind of petrified at this moment and doesn't know what's going on in there. The one thing I will say, that the bad guys, the guys who seem to come across as the antagonists in this, I'm not sure exactly why it is in this book that Rick Remender wants them all to be kind of, I'm going to call them sexual deviants for lack of a better word, whereas our main antagonist obviously has a thing with animals, which is of course thrown a lot of people off the book. You know, people who quit reading the book as soon as they found out that the guy basically violates animals. But he's got this kind of crew that's working for him. They're all kind of messed up in the head too, and they seem to have some sexual deviancies also. So I'm not sure what that's up. I'm not sure what that is supposed to be telling us. I don't know why he's chosen to have all of them be that way. I'm curious to see if there's some underlying rationale for that, or just when he decided to write this book, that was the kind of despicable quote-unquote bad guy that he wanted to have, was all these kind of sexual deviants. So curious about that. Sometimes that makes me uncomfortable. I'm okay with being uncomfortable to some degree, as long as the rest of the story is being told is interesting, and I still think that's the case. And like I said, artwork in it is amazing pants. I enjoy the heck out of it. So I'm gonna keep reading it. Stray Bullets, Killers #7, still a wonderful book. Story about these two characters yet again. This is our budding artist and his girlfriend, who has had a pretty rough life up until this point. We get to go back and kind of see, you know, we've seen some of his past, gone and talked to some of his prior friends and whatnot. Now we go and see some of her prior friends. Her prior friends tend to be drug dealers and that sort of thing. They happen to be visiting when something goes really bad, like a drug deal goes bad or whatever. There's a massive shootout, lots of people die, they have to clean up some messes and that sort of thing, and puts us on a very dark path for these two, to see where maybe they go in future stories, if there are future stories of them. Still really loving the book, love the black and white artwork in it. It's pretty emotionally exhausting because it is so, the people in it are so damaged, and you just kind of go, damn, how can this get any worse for these people? And then they turn a corner and, you know, slip in a puddle of blood or something, and it just gets that much worse. But still really cool. I'm digging it, and I enjoy those few dark, twisted moments of depression reading that book, I guess. Shudder, issue #6. Really feels like in this issue everything is really ramped up, kicked off, and ratcheted up. Now it's going to get super exciting, I think. I feel like we've got a direction for the book. It's kind of meandered up to this point of introducing a lot of stuff and a lot of what-ifs with no answers. Not that I want all my answers given to me all in the first issue, because we wanted the point of reading the book if that happened. But it's given enough now to where we kind of feel like we know who the antagonist is in this book. We know who's coming after this group of, you know, our main character and her younger brother now and whatnot. There's some pretty crazy violence that goes on this. Some of the characters we were introduced to early on don't exist anymore. There's just some kind of, you know, some crazy nutty stuff, because this is kind of an alternate reality where we as a reader don't really know what's going to happen, where, you know, literally there's a robot clock cat that walks around that has candy in his chest, and you know, there could be a tear in the sky and a dragon can come popping out, or there's talking triceratops, or there's all kinds of nutsy stuff goes on in it. You just never know what's going to happen, and that's fun as a reader, that, you know, there's not a predictability. You don't go, oh, I know what's going to happen next because it's a corporate comic that's going to do this or that. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's fun. I don't know how long this book's gonna last. I don't know how many people are still reading it. People were pretty excited about the first couple issues. I haven't really chatted with anybody about the book for a while, so I don't know. I don't know if when's this serial, Matt, if you're still picking them up or not. What's going on? What are you thinking of the book at this point? I know you were pretty excited early on by it. Yeah, I'm digging it. I'll keep getting it. Right on. Next up, The Wicked plus the Divine. So, our main character, our normal human girl who's kind of tagging along with the gods, gets introduced to the rest of the pantheon, as it were, and she's introduced as basically Lucy's best friend, which is great. Other than Lucy's never had best friends, so that's news to them. And, you know, she basically confronts them with, like, look, somebody's a murderer. Somebody killed this judge, and Lucy's getting framed for it. We need to figure out who that is. And everybody's like, well, you know, whatever. It's not me. I don't care, you know, kind of thing. And, you know, you kind of live with the consequences. And you know, Lucy's kind of putting the finger to everybody. So, this is kind of what happens. But they also hint to the fact that there's a certain amount of, look, you know, we can do all kinds of things. We have massive power. But humans have more power over us than what they think they do. We just don't let on to the fact they have as much power as they do. You know, they're concerned that if they really flaunt their powers, they may not come back in the next cycle every 99 years or whatever it is that they come back for the 2 years that they exist, and then they, you know, flash out and die. They're worried that maybe they won't come back, or maybe some of them won't come back, or who knows. So they have to play it low key. They can't just, you know, go and muscle Lucy out of jail and basically, you know, stick a finger to the modern conventions of law and human order. So that's all really interesting. Of course, by the end of this, our main character goes back to talk to Lucy, and Lucy's gone, well, screw this, and has decided she's going to do her own thing. You know, she's only got X number of years to live anyway. She's not going to pander to anybody. She's going to go out and have a good drink of coffee, smoke some smokes, and screw anybody who gets in her way. So, pretty cool. I'm really enjoying it. I love the art. I love the style of the book. And now we're getting more information about the characters that's starting to make it all more interesting. It's starting to make me, you know, start thinking about the what ifs that are involved with this whole pantheon and the idea of these gods showing up every couple of years. And what's the purpose? Are they just there to exist and have their own fun, or is there some greater thing that we're going to find out about? Really curious to enjoy it. And if you read the letters column in there, people have been pressing them to try and get an idea of how long this series is going to run. You know, is it a mini-series? What do they think they're committing to? And they're talking somewhere between 30 and 60 issues is what they're talking about for a run. 30 being way the minimum, 60 being that we're going to give ourselves enough room that as we're writing this, we're telling a story. If something comes to us and we want to tell some side tangent of some sort, like maybe we want to go back and tell the prior incarnations of some of these godlings or whatever, if we want to do that, we've got the room to do it because we haven't tied ourselves in so deep into something that we can't have the flexibility to do all that stuff. So they're not committing to an exact number, which I think is perfect. You know, I mean, if you're enjoying it, read it. Don't sweat how many issues there are, unless the reason there are going to be less issues is because no one's buying it. You know, then sweat. Get out there and talk about the book if you're excited by it. But you know, however many issues is going to be, it's how many issues is going to be. Just read the story. You know, be surprised when it ends if that's where it's going to end at. Just read the story. Fun. Really enjoying it. Next up. This is Trees, issue number 5. This is the least interesting cover of all the Trees covers, because most of the Tree covers I think are really intriguing and really interesting. This one, not so much so. Interesting stuff happens in this one. Of course, last issue, we had this potential military thing going to go on in the shortest tree. Well, it does. We find out that really they're not attacking the tree so much as they're trying to use the tree as a platform to put leverage on the countries that are around this tree, to say, look, basically we're badasses because we can use the tree as a source of power, haha, potentially bound down to us. So there's this whole kind of world-tipping stuff potentially happening that doesn't even really have to do with the trees, other than they're using the trees. Meanwhile, up in Antarctica, where these black poppies are popping out and whatnot, all kinds of bad crap happens in that. And then we get a brief also window into our young Chinese artist and the friends that he has developed. He's had some wild parties. Something ominous is happening outside of the city that looks like it's going to quickly have an impact. And then we also get a brief conversation in Brazil with the old man and the young woman again. And we get some more of his motivation. He seems to think he's got some sort of inside knowledge or something that he wants to experiment with the trees and how he can use those to his advantage and whatnot, which is potentially interesting also. Lots of cool stuff going on in here. Still like this issue. The art continues to be amazing in it. Jason Howard, I love his style of art. He just does a great job. Pen and ink, his shading, his characters, their faces, the facial expressions, the paneling. You know, it just all around is some great stuff. The coloring in it is incredible too. And he is the colorer also. The only thing he doesn't do is the lettering. Everything else, he does all the art. All the art is him, and it's solid, 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 solid stuff. Very excited for the book. Always, it's one of my top books every month to read. The week that it comes out in, it's the most important book in that week for me right now to read. It's what I'm most excited about. So anyway, and here comes the one book that I was less than impressed with, which really surprised me because I've never had anything but good stuff to say about BPRD, Hell on Earth, issue number 123. And basically this is the Godzilla issue. All this issue does is give us a big monster fight that felt exactly like the Godzilla movie, latest Godzilla movie, and didn't feel really have any real consequences. I mean, you know, the last issue was the jump on point, if you want to jump on as your reader, which it was, you know, somewhat reader friendly as far as that, the tight story arc, not the overreaching story arc, but the tight story arc. This finishes that tight story arc off, doesn't really have any impact or really meaning in the grand scheme of things. It was kind of in a place that we've never ventured into before, nor do I think we're going to stay there. The characters that are there are going to quickly move on to whatever else is going on in the actual regular BPRD arc and story that's going on. So for that, it's relatively disappointing. Still cool art, you know, still fun to watch two giant monsters beat on each other, tear each other apart. I mean, it's cool. There's some cool stuff in it. But as far as the story itself, that part of it was somewhat disappointing. It felt like we pandered a little too much to an audience that I don't know is there, the new audience. I'm telling you, everybody, you know, if you're remotely interested, jump on the book. Just, you know, jump in the deep end and you know, work to figure it out, ask some questions, and enjoy the ride. This is probably a great book if you haven't read any of the others and whatnot, but you know, yeah, it was just, you know, felt relatively meaningless, you know, Godzilla type story. One big monster that's kind of on our side fighting some other big monsters who aren't on our side, kind of thing. So, finally this week, we're going to talk about The Life After, issue number 3. Absolutely loving this book. This issue had me laughing at the beginning of it and then pondering some pretty serious stuff by the time I got towards the end of it. First and foremost, right off the bat, if you're offended by people questioning religion or, you know, hinting at potential other things, or as far as like, at least with Christianity anyway, and, you know, somebody can't play with that or whatever, then don't get anywhere near this book. Because we kind of get a history of this blob, this entity. This seems to be the big boss controlling things in the background of Jude, our main character's life in this kind of purgatory and where he was living out before he landed himself in purgatory. There's some indication that this thing existed at the beginning of time. There's some flirtation with him literally showing up back when Mary was around, of Joseph and Mary, and he literally hits on her like she's in a bar kind of a thing. You know, so there's implication that maybe he sired Jesus, potentially, and then of course it's implying that he sired Jude also, and that the mind wipe that they had going on with Jude didn't work. Can't they just wipe him again? You've got this kind of evil corporate dude that goes, no, boss, let me take care of it. And it sounds like he's going to call up what would be the guy downstairs, which I'm assuming is some incarnation of Satan, you know, the devil. So that part's all actually the funny part. And the serious part is Jude is going to take this all on to fix this. He thinks it's all an abomination. Hemingway basically says, dude, you're crazy. He kind of calls Hemingway out, which I think is kind of funny because Hemingway is kind of known as being this kind of macho, you know, run with the bulls, you know, drive an ambulance through combat zones, that sort of a kind of a guy. And so to have Jude calling him basically kind of a coward is funny, but, you know, Hemingway basically explains, you know, look, bravery is based on making smart choices, not just dying. So that's some good stuff in there too. Just a great book. I'm really, really enjoying it. This issue just was great. I mean, it really, you know, pumped everything up about the book and just makes it a lot of fun. So excited to get more of it. Oni Press putting out some great stuff. Anyway, that is it for No Capes this week. Be back with you next week. Next week, once again, is Saga Week, so always got some good No Capes books in there, along with some new #1s I think are going to be popping into the No Capes next week also. So look forward to talking about those books. Anyway, have a great one, everybody, and see you next week.